Breaking with the most dramatic and well-thought-out intervention contemporary Britain has ever seen, Prince William has just caused a political earthquake, shattering 70 years of carefully guarded royal procedure. This wasn't a diplomatic error or a slip of the tongue. This was the future monarch risking everything, his dignity, his reputation, and the stability of the throne to protect his father, King Charles III, from a vicious underground assault coming from the very core of the British government. The scene that ensued was taken directly from a constitutional thriller. Prime Minister Keir Starmer's initial visceral response was complete startled paralysis rather than defiance. A dozen well-chosen, terrible words froze him into utter excruciating silence for everyone to witness. This is more than just a political scandal. It happened less than 60 minutes ago. The worst constitutional crisis the UK has had since Edward VII's abdication is directly related to this. History is being rewritten in real time, and the roots of British democracy are shaking. The ceremony was intended to be a standard ceremonial visit at Westminster Abbey, an establishment rich in royal history and tradition. Prince William tore apart the prearranged script, which included courteous smiles, rehearsed handshakes, and the customary facade of inter-party courtesy. Ignoring the practiced dance everyone expected, he entered that ancient hall with a tangible weight of determination. William made a move so forceful and completely unique that palace insiders are already referring to it as the pivotal event of his adult life, in contrast to the usual royal platitudes meant to stay safely above the political fray. With surgical precision, he delivered 12 lethal words that sliced through the Abbey's silence like a blade and targeted the most powerful politician present. These were statements of frightening, reserved force rather than rage. It had an immediate and disastrous effect. The statement itself was delivered in a simple manner, yet its intent was extremely harmful. No politician has to defend the wisdom and commitment of my father to this country. The final scathing word, politician, was the focal point of the subtle but unmistakable emphasis. The K. The explicit target was Star, who was only a few metres away, and the cameras caught every agonising moment of his public humiliation. Suddenly, the man who had spent weeks planning a plot to overthrow the monarchy was confronted with its destiny. Witnesses described the quiet that followed William's remark as deafening, and his face was devoid of colour. The cabinet ministers next to Starmer were clearly shifting their gaze away from the prince and his leader. You are sadly mistaken if you believe that a simple apology would resolve the impact from this. A brutal, high-stakes battle between the elected government and the Crown has just begun. A conflict that could permanently alter the position of the monarchy and British politics. You need the complete, unvarnished account to comprehend the true dimensions of this struggle and how this constitutional checkmate will unfold. Now is the time to hit the subscribe button, since there is a new, explosive development every minute. We must first understand the political poison that compelled Prince William to make the move in order to fully appreciate its utter chutzpah. The violent altercation in Westminster Abbey did not happen on its own. It was the deliberate public reaction to a sinister, covert conflict that some members of Prime Minister Starmer's close circle were waging against King Charles III. 3 days ago, a series of heartbreaking WhatsApp communications were leaked to senior Conservative sources, revealing a planned, brutal campaign by Labour strategists to methodically damage the monarch's reputation and authority. These weren't meaningless murmurs. These were subtle, tactical observations that confirmed a plan to recast the monarchy as an anachronistic barrier to contemporary democracy and politically neutralise the king. The messages that were leaked revealed a startling picture of a Downing Street war room that saw the ageing king as a political problem that needed to be removed rather than as a symbol of unity. It was evident that Labour strategists had chosen a high-risk, high-reward strategy in the face of fast declining approval ratings and a dire cost of living crisis to preserve Labour's political polls, ruin the king's reputation. The calculus was harsh and frigid. One especially scathing message purportedly from a high-ranking Downing Street aide, served as the campaign's unofficial mission statement. Charles must be portrayed as the antagonist, old, meddling and not elected. He must be perceived by the public as the issue rather than us. This was an explicit order to destroy the king's reputation by depicting him as politically biased and dangerously disconnected from the problems of the people. It was an obvious, cynical and immoral tactic. To avoid political responsibility, sacrifice the crown, a symbol of national stability. However, this operation has much more ominous undertones. The Telegraph was able to get internal documents that showed Starr's strategy section had done more than just improvise this attack. For months they had been preparing for this direct attack on the monarchy. The Labour government reportedly hired aggressive American political consultants, the same companies known for the most brutal election campaigns across the Atlantic, to create messaging specifically intended to undermine public support for the Crown, a move that demonstrates the extent of their desperation. This wasn't inexpensive either. Over £300,000 in taxpayer funds were set aside for this extremely secret project, which was only intended to undermine the head of state. The UK is viscerally outraged by this figure, which is now public. Consider the deep moral void this exposes. As British families struggle to put food on the table, pay their skyrocketing energy bills and heat their homes, Labour's polls revealed that Starr's administration was secretly using enormous amounts of public cash to hire foreign mercenaries to attack the king. Prince William's choice was confirmed by this information. The attack was no longer merely political for him. It was a serious act of moral decay and disregard for his father and the British people. William realised that he could no longer remain silent. His intervention went beyond protecting his family. It was a desperate, high-stakes defence of the nation's highest officer's moral integrity against what he saw as a genuinely poisonous anti-democratic conspiracy. His huge public departure from protocol was about to happen. A step that would make Starmer's covert war public. Prince William reached his breaking point when Starmer's clandestine operation and the heedless use of public monies to destroy the monarchy while the people suffered were made public. A sombre, historic choice was made by the heir apparent, who is often the pinnacle of royal impartiality and discipline. He would wager his honour on a public counterattack right away. This was a huge risk and a clear transgression of the Cardinal's decades-old rule that the royal family must stay completely out of politics. Due to the extreme sensitivity of the matter, palace officials commenting on condition of anonymity have all agreed that this move is unprecedented, a phrase never used in the strictly regulated world of the monarchy. Standing in front of the whole political elite and the international media in Westminster Abbey was William's choice for the most prominent and public setting. This was not an impulsive emotional outburst. William carefully crafted his response over the course of 2 full intense days, according to sources close to the Prince of Wales. His most senior and reliable advisors, as well as constitutional experts, had high-stakes private consultations during this process. Every phrase was considered and every possible constitutional knock-on impact was examined. He made sure his countermove was both legally sound and devastatingly effective, since he understood the seriousness of violating protocol. His intervention became a strategic, authoritative defence of the institution itself as a result of this level of forethought, rather than just an act of rage. His 12-word remark would serve as a sovereign declaration rather than a political view, thanks to the preparation. Princess Catherine's quiet, strong will was the driving force behind this steel-willed determination. The extent of her emotional support was made clear by family friends who spoke on the condition of complete anonymity. Catherine gave William the emotional clarity he needed when he struggled with the huge risk and the possible public backlash for going too far. Your father needs you. Britain needs you. If not now, then when? She reportedly told him, giving him the strong push that was required. This conversation, which was revealed from the Wales family's inner sanctum, highlights the fact that this was not only a defence of a king, but also of a father and the country he serves. It turned the action from a constitutional dilemma into a morally motivated, intensely personal campaign. Unquestionably, the Prince felt that the attack by the Labour Party was a serious moral betrayal which strengthened his resolve. He believed that Starmer was using the Crown's neutrality as a weapon against it in an effort to attain political victory by purposefully causing instability in the foundation of the country's government. William sensed that history was watching him as he stood in that ancient abbey. He spoke with the full weight of the future of the throne, his sentences terrifying in their accuracy and reserve. For thousands of years, he said, with unwavering dignity, the Crown has served this nation with dignity, wisdom, and unwavering dedication. My father has devoted his entire life to the people of Britain. His wisdom and dedication to this nation require no defence from any politician. The message was heard. They cast the die. William's calculated gamble paid off quickly, as evidenced by the rapid fallout, the Prime Minister's astonished silence and the immediate explosion of fury throughout the political and social landscape. This set off an unstoppable chain reaction that would send shockwaves across the globe. Prince William's deliberate slashing announcement had an immediate and disastrous effect, engulfing the Prime Minister in a PR catastrophe. Shortly after the Prince finished speaking, there was a rapid, violent and wholly biased response across the Abbey, and later the entire world. Everyone was aware of the purpose, the objective and the extent of the protocol violation. The future King publicly chastised the Prime Minister in office. Social media quickly turned into a flaming furnace of royal support and political wrath. TikTok, Instagram and Twitter all exploded at the same time. In less than 20 minutes, the hashtag Defend the Crown went to the top of the global trending list, demonstrating that William's action had struck a deep chord with the people that cut over conventional political boundaries. Video excerpts of William's steadfast declaration and steely determination, before Starmer's communication staff could even come up with a simple holding statement, let alone a compelling counter-argument. The purposeful emphasis on the word politician garnered millions of views. The Prime Minister's publicity was disastrous. The power fight was taking place in the harsh, merciless light of public opinion and live camera feeds, rather than in the mysterious halls of power. But the most devastating narrative of all was revealed by the cameras. They painfully detailed Keir Starmer's initial visceral response. The man who only days before had given the go-ahead for a poisonous, malevolent assault on the monarchy was now fully revealed. He was neither angry nor defiant. He looked, in the harsh words of one commentator, like a schoolboy caught red-handed by the headmaster. He was completely stunned, paralysed and unable to speak. There could not have been a more striking visual contrast. The respectable, morally upright prince standing up for tradition and honour on one side. Conversely, the clearly defeated politician descended into a condition of public distress. The video was quickly analysed by body language experts who described it as a textbook instance of severe public humiliation. They saw Starmer repeatedly swallowing in desperation, his hands quivering slightly as a visible sign of inner anguish, and facial expressions that conveyed deep distress and embarrassment. Even Labour's traditional base was quickly turned off by the stark contrast, which was both visually striking and emotionally impactful. This was more than just a political defeat. Millions of people witnessed this severe lack of courage and honesty. The impact was instant and intimate. In a video that went viral in a matter of hours, Margaret Davies, a 64-year-old retired nurse from Cardiff who had always supported Labour, expressed the sentiment of a disillusioned public. Through thick and thin, I have stood by Labour. However, witnessing Kay remain silent as a prince stands up for his father is not a sign of courage. Rather, it is a sign of weakness and shame. Over 800,000 people shared her video, indicating a widespread loss of faith in Starmer's leadership and his public defeat by both the royal family and the devoted supporters of his own party. In addition to the prince's outspoken criticism, the shocking and morally repugnant contrast between the government's covert spending and the desperate suffering of the people they pledged to serve contributed to the swift escalation of the political backlash against Starmer. Labour is routinely cruelly abandoning the very people it claims to support, the working class and the country's heroes. even as Downing Street invests enormous sums of money to ensure its own political survival. Heartbreaking tales that expose the moral void at the core of Starmer's administration surfaced as Prince William's defence of his father took centre stage on the radio. Tonight, British veterans, men and women who bravely and honourably served the Crown, are sleeping on the streets of London. Last week, a 71-year-old veteran of the Falklands named Michael Patterson was found hiding beneath Waterloo Bridge in the bitter cold. His situation is a devastating critique of the government's objectives. His small pension hardly covers his necessary medication after 40 years of devoted devotion to the Crown. With tears running down his wrinkled face, he told reporters, "I fought for this country. I can't even afford a roof over my head after witnessing my friends die for my country." Michael's tragedy is remarkably typical. More than 6,000 ex-service members are currently listed as homeless in Britain, according to data provided only yesterday by Veterans UK. While the political elite quarrels, 6,000 heroes are frozen beneath bridges with nowhere to go, their sacrifices forgotten, and their dignity taken away. The government's extravagant, self-serving spending stands in stark contrast to this humanitarian situation. Downing Street spent an incredible £1.2 million last month on high-end diversity consultants, media strategists and foreign political advisors, the very architects of the anti-monarchy campaign. While Michael and thousands like him battle to make ends meet, we are discussing champagne receptions for Labour donations, six-figure executive salaries and opulent hotel stays for government officials. £38,000 was spent on strategic communications training for junior politicians, according to government reports, which was one particularly repulsive spend. In essence, taxpayer funds were utilised to train politicians on how to skillfully sidestep and avoid responding to challenging inquiries from the public and media. There is a huge internal schism as a result of the financial duplicity, which is so obvious and morally corrupt. Newspapers that have historically supported Labour are denouncing the shame. Starr's credibility was severely damaged by a headline on the front page of the Daily Mirror, which has historically been the Labour Party's most powerful media supporter. While Starr schemes to overthrow the monarch, veterans freeze. This wasn't opposition scheming or Conservative spin. It was the disgust and rage of Labour's own base turning against their leader. While the administration was solely concerned with maintaining its own power through lies and lavish vanity projects, the public could clearly see that the Crown was battling for the integrity of the country. Prince William had been given the moral upper hand in an irreversible manner. The political establishment was reeling from the moral indignation over Starmer's spending and Prince William's scathing public criticism when something even more extraordinary happened. His deep quiet was broken by King Charles III himself. However, Charles's reply lacked his son's dramatic flair. It was carried out with dignity, moderation and sovereign weight, a far more powerful and historically significant weapon. He opted for a private, very important event at Buckingham Palace last night rather than the public stage. According to sources, the King spoke to a powerful assembly of Commonwealth leaders with remarks that would surely be examined by constitutional historians for many years to come. Neither Starmer nor the Labour Party were specifically mentioned by him. However, it was clear who his message was intended for. Speaking calmly but decisively, the King made a clear statement about the monarchy's responsibility in the face of political assault. The entire backdrop of this luncheon makes the King's intervention geometrically more crucial. His Majesty declared, "We serve. We do not rule, but we also do not abandon the principles that have kept this nation stable through centuries of challenge." The Crown does not participate in political conflicts. The Prime Ministers of Australia and New Zealand, the Governor-General of Canada, and delegates from 15 other Commonwealth countries were seated around the table. King Charles was doing far more than just making a straightforward defence by selecting this specific audience. He was conveying a well-thought-out message that went beyond the boundaries of Britain. He was reminding everyone, especially the global financial markets, that the Crown stands for something much bigger and more permanent than any one short-lived person or government. In stark contrast to Starmer's portrayal of turmoil and self-interest, he was creating an image of steadiness and unflinching dedication. These comments were not written in a hurry, according to palace insiders. They were carefully selected, examined by the top constitutional attorneys, and designed to deliver several messages at once. The message was plain to the Prime Minister: you have seriously transgressed a basic religious boundary. The message was strong and unspoken to Prince William. I am in favour of your intervention. It was essential that you stand up for the institution. Additionally, the message was one of calm certainty to the British population. While the politicians panic and engage in ugly, petty infighting, the monarchy stays calm, obedient and above the fray. For the Labour government, the optics of this dual response, William's forceful, essential counterattack, followed by the King's composed, authoritative statement, are utterly disastrous. On one side is a king who had every right to react angrily and might have used his vast power to take political revenge, but he opted to uphold constitutional principles instead. The silent historical weight of the monarch, on the other hand, appears petty, vengeful and completely outmatched by the Prime Minister, who hit first and hardest. The idea that the monarchy is the last stronghold of unwavering stability while the government is becoming unstable was cemented by Charles's discreet action. Starmer now faces a new, much more hazardous layer of danger just when it seemed that the crisis had reached its political pinnacle. Senior members of the House of Lords are planning what one anonymous speaker referred to as the nuclear option behind closed doors and out of the spotlight. The very debate of this action, which is so drastic and constitutionally explosive, demonstrates the extent of the political crisis that Starmer has unilaterally created. Lord Harrington, a well-known crossbench peer with 40 years of experience in constitutional law, is the main subject. In order to assess the feasibility of a move for the upper chamber to legally reprimand a serving Prime Minister for criticising the monarchy, he has been discreetly and carefully conferring with leading legal experts. This is not just a vote of no confidence. The nation's unwritten constitutional rules have been violated, and this is a serious institutional censure. It is impossible to overestimate the importance of this action. Since 1783, the House of Lords has not effectively censured a Prime Minister for this particular transgression. How dangerously far Starmer has pushed Britain into new constitutional waters is demonstrated by the fact that serious, reputable legal minds and seasoned constitutional veterans are even considering reviving this antiquated, potent instrument. Lord Harrington is renowned for his methodical, unwavering dedication to constitutional integrity, and if this legal process proceeds, it would cause a constitutional earthquake that would instantly make Starmer's prime ministership totally untenable and essentially destroy his political authority. An unprecedented political tool, the Lord's censure would serve as the last institutional check on a renegade executive who is thought to be targeting the head of state. Its moral and constitutional power would be overwhelming, yet neither a general election nor the dissolution of Parliament would be necessary. Some parts of the administration are already paralysed by the mere prospect of it. However, this is where the Labour leader's scenario becomes even more explosively unpredictable. Nobody could have predicted the depth of the fractures within his own party. 3 senior Labour colleagues have reportedly informally stated that they would back a motion to denounce Starmer, according to high-level sources. These legislative establishment members of his own party are now prepared to formally and publicly criticise their leader for his terrible political judgment. The depth of the rift is demonstrated by this internal betrayal. Starmer's choice to use the monarchy as a weapon against his own political shortcomings has alienated moderates and constitutionalists from all walks of life, including those who are meant to be his closest supporters in the Lords. The Prime Leader now faces a potential constitutional hammer blow, as well as an existential danger from his own benches. This constitutional conflict's unrelenting, startling domino effect quickly spread from the political sphere into the financial markets, demonstrating the close connection between the stability of the monarchy and the stability of the economy. International investors responded to the developing crisis with quick, harsh pessimism. The financial consequences were immediate and disastrous as soon as word spread throughout the world of Prince William's extraordinary condemnation and the Lord's nuclear option. The foundation of the UK's international financial position, the pound sterling, fell 1.4% during morning trading. This was not a slight variation. In a couple of hours, billions were lost from investment portfolios, savings accounts and pension funds. The market's message was clear. Capital is directly threatened by constitutional instability. The Prime Minister's political ploy had brutally destroyed the perceived security and predictability of the UK system, the very stability ensured by its historic institutions. The atmosphere in London was described by currency dealers as total panic. Veterans of every financial crisis since the 1980s, senior traders were clearly disturbed. The fundamental worry of the financial industry was expressed by a senior trader who spoke to Bloomberg under condition of anonymity. The one thing that markets just cannot price in is constitutional instability. The unwritten norms, the Lords, the Crown, and Britain's fundamental institutions are all under scrutiny. Everything starts to become erratic. The premium for risk increases dramatically when the state's governance is fundamentally threatened. We are simply unable to hold positions. Starmer's political haughtiness was shown as an economic disadvantage by this market upheaval. Given Starr's purported populist mandate, the dramatic decrease in the value of the pound directly affects the cost of imports, which means that British families currently battling with high energy and food expenditures would now face even greater costs of terrible irony. The financial elite is aware that the monarchy is an essential symbol of continuity and the legitimacy of government, not merely a ceremonial diversion. A Prime Minister who challenges that emblem is undermining the trust of global capital. A major real-world result of Starr's carelessness is the sharp decline in sterling and the tangible market panic. The common people whose savings and pensions depend on the stability of the currency are paying the financial price, not the politicians who created the crisis. The economic message is severe and unambiguous. Keir Starmer's leadership has already been judged by the market, and the results are overwhelmingly unfavourable. The political crisis has turned into a full-fledged financial crisis, and the Prime Minister is facing increasing pressure to resign from both his political rivals and the harsh, strong processes of international finance. His premiership is crumbling along with the financial dominoes. The single metric that politicians fear most has dealt Keir Starmer's leadership its final crushing blow. The surveys of public opinion. The most recent polls, which were carried out immediately following Prince William's criticism and the economic unrest, attest to an unparalleled political disaster for the Labour Party. Their polling ratings, which were already declining quickly as a result of internal strife and the crisis in the cost of living, have now reached a new all-time low. According to the data, there was a widespread public flight motivated by the belief that the celebrity violated the integrity of the country and put political ego ahead of the interests of the country. For the government, the results of the most recent YouGov survey are nothing short of disastrous. Conservative support has increased dramatically, reaching 38%. Importantly, Reform UK, the right-wing populist rival party, has risen sharply to 26%. And the Labour Party, they have fallen to only 23%. This startling statistic indicates that the ruling party has fallen to third place in the national polls for the first time in contemporary British history. Take a moment to process that seismic shift. The main opposition and a growing populist competitor have more support than the ruling party. An even more dire image of Starmer's impending political catastrophe is painted by more thorough polls. Labour's traditional base is completely abandoning key demographics and geographic areas. Among voters over 50, a group that is essential to winning elections. In crucial battlegrounds in the Midlands and Northern England, Labour's support has collapsed to a pitiful 7%. Labour needs to win these areas known as the Red Wall in order to take power. In their own historic heartlands, they are currently 20 points behind Reform UK. The voters perceive Starmer May's fight against the monarchy as a significant diversion from their actual economic suffering and feel deceived. This collapse is more than just a statistical embarrassment. Panic has spread among the Labour apparatus as a result. Labour is expected to lose more than 150 seats in today's general election, according to internal party polling that is currently circulating among scared MPs. This is not a minor setback. This would be the Labour Party's worst electoral performance since 1935, destroying decades of political history and maybe permanently shattering the party. What years of cautious manoeuvring failed to accomplish, Starmer's carelessness has. It has severely damaged his own electoral prospects and brought the right together. There is complete political harm. The last scathing verdict has been rendered by the public. In order to gain a temporary political advantage, the Prime Minister risked the stability of the country and is now politically doomed. For Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the tumultuous high-stakes conflict brought on by Prince William's defence of King Charles has now reached its tragic, predictable conclusion. From ordering the clandestine anti-monarchy campaign to using public funds for political devastation, every calculated risk he took has led to a stunning, complex disaster. The political landscape has completely changed, depriving Starmer of popular support, financial credibility and moral authority. All of the dominoes have fallen. That deafening quiet in Westminster Abbey is still the pivotal moment. Williams's intervention was not merely a political ploy. It was a stunning moral assault that effectively portrayed Starmer as the cynical divider and the monarchy as the main guardian of national unity. The public soon saw through the Labour leader's attempt to create a culture war against the Queen in order to divert attention away from real national issues like the freezing veterans and the catastrophic cost of living. The Prince decisively won the moral high ground, which was previously believed to be safely neutral. Three crucial fronts have now solidified Starmer's defeat. Destruction of the Constitution. The Prime Minister is now constitutionally radioactive due to the possibility of the